not knowing what to say.
Well, I collected some stats yesterday. Since July, true ending has been improved by just shy of 1 minute and 45 seconds. So there's a 34:14 encode in July, and since then it has come down almost 2 minutes. And any percent has come down, worth noting, like 30 seconds in the last 2 years. So this task has been improved a little bit lately for some reasons that some among you may be aware of. And I think without any further ado, we can probably jump into the showcase here. Whenever you're ready, Super, you can start the video. Alright, so right off the bat, true ending, of course, the goal is to complete Farewell as fast as possible from a new save file, which means getting core access. So we will need 4 hearts, and then beat Summit to unlock core, and then core to unlock Farewell.
I need to stretch my hands after that 2 hours of playing. This is...
Speed conservation in Celeste TASing is often all about using dashes and then preserving it with climb jumps, bunny hops, etc. So you can see here we're able to build up a lot of speed and keep it through rooms and room transitions, and also skipping various parts of rooms like that. Do you want to talk about blocks that give speed, Calvin?
Yeah, so blocks moving like this give you lift boost, which means whenever you jump or dash for I think 10 frames after you leave them, they will give you a speed boost. That speed boost gets given, it can stack, so you can get a lot of speed, and we were able to skip a room right before Chasm like that.
Yeah, that's City in under 50 seconds.
I also kept track of time saved in each chapter. City has not been improved at all since the last showcase. It's super optimized.
Yeah, definitely one of the most optimized Celeste TASes. As far as the hearts we collect, it'll be pretty much the same as RTA play, 3A, 4A, 5B, and 6B. So these first couple chapters here will just be standard any percent gameplay. There you saw one of our first delayed ultra chains in the TAS. If you down diagonal dash into a corner and corner boost, when you next hit the ground, you actually get the same 1.2 times speed boost that an ultra normally gives. And that can be changed many times.
Some of these vertical screen transitions look very funny. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, sure. You take that away.
So on vertical screen transitions, you can like kind of build up a bunch of speed. Like normally you would have your horizontal speed reset when you go through like a vertical screen transition, but if you brush against the wall, you actually like the game wants to give you your momentum back the next time you are like you don't have any wall in front of you, and you can kind of abuse that on vertical screen transitions to get a bunch of speed.
Here in Awake, the name of the game is not rubbing up against walls. So this is actually not the most speed that can be generated, but it is the fastest that we know how to complete the chapter by spending as little time as possible behind walls there. So with sections like that, you can consider bottlenecks, which is a big thing that is optimizable in TASes, where it's like the objective is either to go usually horizontally or vertically, sometimes reaching a collectible, but making sure that you're optimizing for the right thing is very important. There was another delayed ultra chain there. That one was made by Marlin in like 2021 for any percent.
Off of that key door, we did a door ultra. Normally, grounded ultras, after they end, you lose all your speed, but if you get retained speed by bumping into a wall, then it will get refunded after your dash ends, so you can keep a grounded ultra speed boost after the ultra ends.
Yeah, we saw another one on the second key door, and then a really cool under strat there with a late coyote jump, jumping in leniency frames after leaving the ground.
Also, that room looks so funky now. I'm not sure if that's one of the rooms that got improved, but I definitely felt new.
Here, this is a reverse corner boost into an ultra, and then another grounded ultra to keep speed through that cutscene. A lot happened in that room. Then here we need the heart, so we're going to start with towels and our first demo dash through hazards of the run. I'm sure most of you are familiar with those. This retry here saves a little bit of time over waiting for the button. And then we're going to get a lot more vertical speed transition here across that room right there.
I think that was the second and the last death of this run. Skipping, like, abusing the respawn mechanic when entering the screen to skip like a bunch of books there.
Oh man, that cycle is so tight. That's the last huge mess button, so we'll be headed into elevator shaft here.
Do you have any idea where the time save is in 3A compared to the last encode?
I'm not sure. There's 23 frames improved, but I don't know where they came from.
It's probably like small stuff here and there. I think there was some in Oshiro, but I'm not sure.
So an important thing with Oshiro coming up is the roof tiles here don't extend very far into the screen transitions, so you can actually get corner corrected outside of them and then spawn in the next one when you transition to the next room. And then you can still jump out of it because you're on the top pixel. That lets you land a delayed ultra on otherwise flat ground.
Yeah, I think it's
right there.
Right there.
And then again here.
Yeah, and nowhere else in the run, I think.
Nowhere else in the game, even. It's very, very niche tech. That is a 328, 3A side with the heart, mind you. As you can see, horizontal sections are Tasser's best friends, as keeping speed through them is very, very possible. And something Uni mentions in chat is Oshiro slowdown. When Oshiro gets close to the player, the physics actually slow down, and minimizing that is very important. And then right away here, you saw a very large water boost. You can jump consecutive frames in the top pixel of, or top tile of water, excuse me, and generate a lot of speed at the start of the chapter here. And then this 4A Heart Collect might look a little different than you're used to seeing from RTA play. Keep an eye out for this. Do you know when that strat variation was added, Calvin?
I know Vamp found it something like the last few months, I think.
Alrighty, and here in Old Trail with the stronger wind, you're going to see a lot of delayed ultras to enter rooms, as this allows us to skip the puzzle. So there, we lose time before transition, and then save it back and more afterwards. Same thing here. Now, unfortunately, we do have to use the block in the next room, but not for very long.
It is possible to skip it, it's just faster to use all the speed from it.
Of course.
Yeah, RTA players actually skip the block entirely, but it's not as fast.
Alright, and now you're not going to want to blink. You will miss an entire room if you do, starting right about here. Man, that Ultra Chain is nice.
Yeah. It's also been like in the TAS for a while now.
Yeah, the ARB route was improved recently, being able to keep more speed, but the 90% version hasn't changed for a bit here.
The ARB route also has to wait for a snowball. Alright, so going into this chapter in the first room with swap blocks, you're going to see an overclock. You can wall boost by doing a neutral grab jump and then holding away from the wall. If you do that and immediately move off of the ground before you get your stamina refunded, then yeah, you get enough stamina for 5 climb jumps instead of 4, so that's even faster than it used to be.
Yeah, I think if my history is right, like, wasn't it frame tight before, like with only 4 climb jumps, or am I misremembering?
I made it 1 frame faster.
Nice.
And of course, just like in RTA 80% runs, we're going to be playing 5B and 6B here for hearts, and because they're faster. Something to mention is that the cassette room here has actually been improved recently. We managed to fit in 2 more dashes, which pauses the in-game timer while the music keeps playing, which advances the cycle. So 2 more dashes in that route down on the bottom of the room. I saved about 0.1. And we're into 5B. If you're familiar with the start of the TAS in Central Chamber, it's going to look a little bit different because there is yet another overclock as we wait for the block to move back. So prepare yourself for a very interesting multi-boost in a couple rooms here.
It's a room people know as the Bubs drop room, probably, right there.
Yeah, but TAS doesn't need to do that. This is one of the few rooms in the game where 1.4 actually lost time because the dash does not snap down anymore into the spikes, which means making that cycle is just barely not possible.
I think it's even by 1 frame. I think it used to be like we got the alt cycle in 1.3, then we barely found a way to get the fast cycle, and then 1.4 made it impossible again. So we lose like 20 frames there now.
Alright, coming up on Seekers, this is... Oh yeah, this room is same time in 1.4. Seekers are very interesting for the TAS because, A, they're entirely deterministic, they are very erratic, but if you do the exact same inputs, which we're doing here, then they'll do the same thing. Also, if you throw Theo into them, or if they charge into a wall, then they'll get stunned and bounce you off of them instead of killing you when you hit them, so you can get very funky stuff like that.
Yeah, and of course, we see Theo Ultras pushed to their extreme here, using Theo to cancel grounded Ultras. And then you're also going to see a jump timer abuse there, out of that spring. Madeline, after dashing into Theo, gets the vertical speed from the spring afterwards. And then, yeah, we're done with the level. This level does not take very long.
It'll come up again in Farewell, but throwing Theo backwards gives a speed boost.
Okay, Calvin. Spinner stunning, go.
Oh, yes. Alright, so spinners start unloaded, and they only load when they're in range, which is defined as on camera and close to Madeline. For performance, they only check if they're in range every 3 frames, but even when they are in range, we can pause repeatedly to keep them unloaded. That's accomplished because on the first frame you pause, the internal timer they use increases, but they don't update, so the spinners don't load. Which means every 3 frames you can pause through them like this.
Where did Madeline go? Oh.
Also, there are 2 climb hop cancels here. The main idea is you climb up the top edge and then get attached to the block, and you can jump to cancel the climb hop, but it gets... You still have the vertical speed from the block, and that lets you clip through even more spinners.
Okay, so that was 6A. Yeah. And now this chapter is one of the most improved levels in the TAS because spinner stunning can be abused in a few more spots, starting right here. So here we can go down, get the spinners off screen, pause through them, and then with the feather time, we can actually entirely skip the next screen, which is much of the time save of the strat. It's worth noting that spinner stuns, while powerful, you lose about 11 frames of pausing for every 2 frames of gameplay. So you have to be able to save a lot of movement with them. And this is another room that Calvin tasked where you can in fact save a lot of movement with them by getting ahead of the block and entirely skipping that backtrack.
Otherwise you have to wait for a really slow Kevin on top.
Yeah, usually with big like cycle skips like that, or like in places where a lot of speed is involved, it might be worth looking into spinner stunning.
Yeah, the thing about spinner stuns is that if you have more speed, 1, you need to do less pauses because you get to the spinner faster, and 2, you get to keep a lot of speed where you maybe normally wouldn't otherwise. So yeah, those 2 factors working together make the tech pretty powerful. But it is definitely not true in this checkpoint.
Oh yeah, I never mentioned the timer that every 3 frames that the spinners try to check if they should load if they're in range. It's different for each spinner, and they get rounded together to the nearest frame, so effectively there's 3 groups of them. You can only keep 1 unloaded at a time.
And now we're into Madeline. Time to bully her a little bit. Oh, in this room, you will see that the 1.4 bottom of screen kill plane was dropped 4 pixels, which is enough to do this. Saving a little bit of backtracking for coins.
Yeah, waiting for the feather to respawn is still faster than going back to the start and skipping all of the coins.
And here we stun through this.
It's one of the stunts where like you can get away with it because the camera is kind of like a bit higher up, and there was another spinner stun right there in the previous room.
The delayed ultra here at the start of this room saves 2 frames, by the way, because you have to set it up for so long.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening in 6B now. It's really cool.
I'm curious how much chat thinks that this level has been improved in the last 6 months. Here you can get enough speed in that feather to skip the waiting in the second one.
Oh yeah, shoutouts to Demo Jameson, the main developer of the TAS tools. I think someone else helped implement the spinner group visualizer, but yeah, all the spinners have different colors of their hitboxes, so we can see which ones we can stun at a time.
Yes. Like Chatlow guessed, it was actually just over 10 seconds. And 7A, on the other hand, has much less room for spinner stunning. 2 dashes gives us a lot more freedom, and there really just aren't walls of spinners used as hazards that frequently. They're sort of more like decoration on the sides of rooms, or like here, we can't really spinner stun to get to battle line faster. One thing that is worth mentioning is that the 7A TAS was a 6.4x for nearly 2.5 years, and just 2 weeks ago, it finally crossed that barrier into 6.3x. And we'll see that one of the big reasons why later on in the chapter. I love 2-dash movement, it's so clean. Want to talk about what we can do in 1K here, Marlin?
Sure.
In general with dream blocks.
Yeah, with like 2 dashes you can it's worth it to like do dream hypers, which is like basically a hyper dash out of a dream block in coyote frames, and then afterwards you can usually follow it up with like another down diagonal dash for an ultra dash, or like just movement to the next dream block, I guess. So we see a lot of dream hypers and double jump into ultra dashes here out of these dream blocks.
There's going to be jump timer abuse at the end of this orb room. You can do a wall bounce into Madeline, and because the jump timer from a wall bounce lasts so long, you keep moving up during the grab animation.
I think I saw that once while messing with the test, but I wasn't entirely sure how that worked. Interesting.
It's a very, very niche tech, yeah. Just starting the battle line throw from a little bit higher. Here, in that last room, there's actually a small, technically a delayed ultra to get crouch state on the first frame of landing. And then up here, we're going to have a new route by Calvin.
Yes, I found this to frame tie at first. Turns out you can dash as the exit closes over you and save 12 frames by getting past a wall sooner. R.I.P. dog room.
Yep. Into 2,000 meters here, you're going to see a lot of nice speed conservation through these first few rooms.
Oh, this ultra chain is very cool to watch.
Wind and spikes are simply a suggestion. And then a multi-boost here that starts with a down dash to get Coyote frame, and then a Coyote hyper, I believe, to start that.
A funny Coyote hyper off of a spinner up here because of the wind.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, you can get Coyote time off spinners in wind because the wind pushes you into the spike, and then Madeline moves out of it before the next death check. That can be abused pretty frequently. This route looks very, very silly, but saves like quite a bit of time actually. And then here we get our one spinner stun in 7A to clear that spinner with speed, and then really zoom through the next room. So that strat is a big reason why 7A is now 6-3x, excuse me.
Whoever mentioned drift in chat, it is actually relevant there in all cassettes. This chapter had to be resynced because one of the two spinners you go through changes groups. Thanks to floating point imprecision. I will not elaborate further, it sucks. At the end of this room, there's going to be another climb hop cancel. I think I mentioned how they already work, but it is also worth mentioning they force you to hold neutral, so it saves a lot of time in any percent here, but in all red berries saves 2 frames.
And yeah, you might think that spinner stunning would be relevant in 3K, but I guess just the very vertical nature of this checkpoint prevents us from like doing anything with it. Usually we already take the like pretty much the most direct route you could take through the level. Also in downdraft there aren't that many spinners.
Updraft is pretty annoying because it's harder to demo dash through spinners. You can't do it normally here, and spinner stunning saves not enough time. So you have to take these slower, awkward routes to just wait to fall enough. Oh, also, skipping battle in orbs is only possible if they don't lock the camera. These ones in 3K and one in core are pretty much the only ones we see in main game that don't lock the camera but also aren't skippable.
Oh, that's 80% in 2146 with a couple extra hearts, huh?
They didn't know we jump in the house now. Like, it doesn't save any time, but it's cool.
Alright, now we're into core. This is one of my favorite levels in the TAS. This level has been blown wide open, in especially the horizontal sections. You'll see some of that right away here, and then in about a minute. So of course, without getting dash refills on the ground, we have to route them, or the use of them, very carefully. So like in this room we climb, and then can do 2 wall bounces to skip that room entirely. There's some new core block tech. Do you want to talk about that, Calvin?
Sure, there's solid 3 kinds. One of them is a bit awkward. You need the block, yeah, it's right here. You need the block to move up 3 pixels in 1 frame, so you need to land in a specific spot to then do a reverse hyper corner boost off of it. There's another variant you'll see at the end of the chapter. But before then, there's another interesting tech with core blocks. You can grab onto the side of them and they'll wind up. They give you a lift boost while they wind up. And then you can dash and then do a bunch of climb jumps and get a lot of speed.
Here, of course, just like RTA runners, both dashes will be conserved to use them to make the end of the room much faster. Then a lava wall bounce there to skip that last core block.
Right, lava has invisible walls inside of it to prevent you from going through in assist mode, just like people were talking about in chat to block you from getting the 7A heart.
Here, skipping battle line saves a little bit of time because you can avoid the landing animation and after the transition.
Yep. Then, yeah, I already mentioned the first tech we'll see here with core blocks. The second one we'll see in the cassette room. There's 1 frame between when they wind up, when they finish winding up and when they start pushing you out. You can be off of them on that frame and they won't break. And then on the next frame, when you get back on top of them, they will keep going in the direction you started in, so you can abuse that to get a lot of speed to the right.
And that saves, I believe, over 10 seconds because of how much faster the final room is. And also skipping the cassette. And now we're into Farewell, where Madeline learns how to fly.
That was patched in 1.4. The alternative was you fall forever.
And that allows us to get up to this room and skip the trigger that resets Madeline to 1 dash. And now we've got 2 dashes for much of the level. Also worth mentioning, 8A was improved by almost 5 seconds since July.
Did we mention that like the stuff you can do with spinner stunning can also be done on lightning? That's only in Farewell?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
you can
should
talk about
mention that. And specifically, you can see which lightning is being stunned, prevented from loading, because it won't have the dim yellow box drawn in the middle. You can also kind of tell with the spinners in this chapter, the ones that aren't being updated won't change colors, but they might have already had their hitboxes loaded earlier, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, and the first instance of lightning stunning is happening right here. Get a lot of speed into the next room and then slow down at the end, do the regular stuff. Like before we would start building up speed in the next room, so we can save a bit of time there, building it up even sooner.
We've gone back and forth with Power Source over whether or not to bring the jellyfish into the hub or just take the one in the hub. Bringing it in saves about half a second right now, maybe more.
Lightning stunning, just like spinner stunning, requires high speed to do it quickly. And also, if hazards are loaded right at the start of the room, it's very, very difficult to unload them because you can't get far enough away. So it works well in that first power source room because it starts off screen and because you can get so much speed building into it.
Also, unlike spinners, lightning only tries to unload if it's off screen. So if it's on screen at the start of the room and you want to go through it, then you're out of luck.
There was just a little bit of speed building up behind one of those key doors, and then our first instance of a spring multi-boost there, as well as some more pause stunning to get through that room with speed and skip this block entirely. So a lot happened there.
Delayed ultra off of intro car, woo!
It has to be the best spread, hands down.
In a lot of these room transitions, a full height jump into an upright dash is just short of reaching the top of a wall, so there are a few places where we can't conserve speed. Here, we no longer need the binocular to skip this room because of 2 dashes. And then this room was improved quite a bit recently to get more speed into it. I think coming up soon will be our first instance of Bino interaction storage. Do you want to mention that, Calvin?
Sure. So Bino interaction storage, there's a failsafe flag put on binoculars so that if you exit the room while you're interacting with them, it sets your state to the normal state. You can get Bino interaction storage by interacting with the Bino on one frame and then getting off the ground, for example, by jumping on the next frame. Anyway, you can use that state reset to cancel grounded ultras through screen transitions. You get a lot of speed.
Take a little detour here.
That is faster than 8C, but not the fastest speed in the TAS.
I made that little bee hop up at the end of that room. It saves like 0.1. Very important, I know.
Well done. Nice job.
Also, since we didn't mention it before, if you're moving away from a wall but on the closest pixel to it, then you'll still be able to grab it and also survive the spikes on the side of it.
Up here's another instance of Bino interaction storage.
Yes.
Which is used to skip the coins in this room.
More pause stunning to get through spinners there. And then this cutscene at the end of this checkpoint takes away our second dash, and we do not know of a way to avoid it.
So coming up into stubbornness, this was improved pretty heavily by Vamp and me better part of a year ago, with a lot more weight dashes and making some better cycles in rooms like this. And a lot more speed conserved here. And then you're going to see another instance of Bino interaction storage near the end of the checkpoint, right here. So with that canceled grounded ultra, we're able to skip that room pretty much in its entirety. And we're into recon.
Jump time reduced here. Since I didn't mention it earlier, Moon Spring boosts The spring, when you hit it, recoils the block backwards. You hit it again, the block snaps forwards. If the distance it snaps is greater than the width of the spring, then you'll get a lot of lift boost.
Also, isn't the run supposed to end in like 1.5 minutes? How's TAS gonna finish the level in that amount of time?
I don't know. Something tells me you might know something about that, though, Marlin.
A little bit.
So a concept from min-dash tasking is smuggling jellies into rooms where you're not supposed to have them, because it can allow you to conserve or to save a lot of dashes. It also allows for backtracks that would not normally be possible. So coming up in a couple rooms here, we will be taking a jelly someplace where we're not supposed to have one.
Shoutouts to RNG desyncs in this room.
Building up speed here allows for making this cycle, and then just barely possible to take this jelly over the block here, and also through the next room. This is some really cool movement. Keep an eye out on these swap blocks.
Yeah, we will backtrack, park the jelly right there at the end of the screen, and then build up a ton of speed, and combine that with lightning stunning. And then don't blink.
So believe it or not, there are rooms here. I guess you can kind of see them go by, but Madeline instead builds up over 3,000 speed to get to the end of the level in about 15 seconds.
Was that the biggest room in the game? Right there? I think so.
And time. 32:22.
GG.
GG.
So of the like 1 minute and 48 seconds of improvement since the last encode of this, over 1.5 minutes of that came from Farewell.
Yeah, I think there was like an entire thing where another binocular related strat was found in the last room that already saved like a ton of time, and then that got obsoleted with by the lightning stunning, and a ton of people worked on that to make that work and improve it over time. So that's, yeah, really cool.
Yeah, huge shout outs to everyone who made this possible. Bread, for instance, asked the question of asking about pausing and spinner cycles, and then Demo so much for the task tools. He's always so fast to update them, both with the Bino control storage binds and the visual updates for spinner stunning. Super important. And people like Creeps and Aleph have been making a ton of improvements in main game lately. So huge shout outs to them as well. I think that's all for now on tasking. We will be posting the video of this as well as an all chapters task on our YouTube page in the coming days. So if you'd like to see that, definitely keep an eye out and go subscribe.